What a week it's been for Minnesota. To have 3 straight overtime wins, all with scores of 3-2 in the past 3 games, and the Wild have now won 6 straight. They are rolling, absolutely rolling right now. They are a team that looks playoff ready. They are a team that is willing to go up against anybody in the league, and they proved that today. I would have put out a couple more videos earlier, but things got in the way for me. So, we're doing this all in one day, coming off of probably the biggest game of the season for this team in a 3-2 overtime win over the Colorado Avalanche. Wow. And it wasn't just them. All 3 of these past 3 games that I haven't been putting up videos on, they have been nuts. But I have been trying to take notes for the ones I am able to catch. So let's start little ways back. Let's start with the game against Vancouver. Bruce Boudreau's back in the building for the first time since he was fired by the Wild and Everson took over. Now he's in charge of a Canucks team that's starting to gain ground and possibly, is fighting for their playoff lives right now. They still have a chance to sneak into the second wildcard spot in the West, but they need as many points as they can get. Minnesota, at this point in time, was still sitting behind St. Louis and was fighting because Nashville was right next to them. So they desperately needed points in this game too. The game started out with Demko versus Talbot, and it stayed that way the whole time. 2 goaltenders who basically stood on their heads. And Cam Talbot, ever since Fleury's gotten here, he has been incredible. He has been all-star performance worthy, in which many cases I thought he kind of was earlier in the season. He's definitely proving he deserved that all-star nod. He is stopping everything in his tracks. He's standing on his head, and specifically for this Avs game, I looked at the comments for Avs Insider on the recent post. Most of the Avs fans that commented there basically said if it wasn't the refs, which we'll get to that later, then it was Cam Talbot just standing on his head and being incredible, which he was. I know letting in 2 goals is bad, but the fact that he managed to keep it only 2 goals for the best team in the league, that allowed us to win. So let's go back. It's Vancouver. This is the second game after the trade deadline in which Minnesota was supposed to start Fleury at some point. Fans are eagerly waiting for it. Talbot still gets the nod in this game. It was also Jacob Middleton's debut tonight, and he's proving to be a very, very good deadline pickup for Minnesota. So we start with 19:13 left in the first period. Marcus Foligno and Luke Shen end up dropping the gloves. No big deal, pretty big scrum right off the bat, but it does kind of separate the grief line a little bit, which I know that wasn't really Foligno's intention, but he wants to get the building into it and get all that going and blah, 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 blah. But regardless, him and Shen are sitting for 5 minutes. And the game was I described it as being scrappy. Basically, think a bunch of Connor Garlands all over the Vancouver Canucks. They're a very scrappy, hungry, young team. They're a good playoff team if they decide to make it, which I think they could. If Dallas decides to screw up and Vegas can't make it, why not Vancouver? Maybe they could jump in. They have like a 10% chance right now to possibly sneak into the playoffs. That might be dropping now, but at that point it was 10%, and they desperately needed these wins. So they're playing like a scrappy, hungry team that wants to get into the playoffs. Let me lower my chair down, jeez. Sitting too high on the throne here. Anyway, with 15:47 to go in the first period, Bo Horvat gets on the score sheet for the Canucks, his 25th of the season, assisted by OEL, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, his 14th assist of the season, and Brock Besser, his 19th assist of the season. Basically, Talbot had a 3-on-1 come his way. He stops the 3-on-1. The puck ended up bouncing loose in the slot, and Bo Horvat was right there. Basically, that's a good chunk of the goals that Talbot has given up. They haven't been, in this game they were saying, but they haven't been, goals that he should have. They've been, really good chances in the slot that most regular players would score on. These aren't easy chances to stop, in my opinion. So, Canucks are up 1-0, and like they pointed out on that broadcast, because Marcus Foligno kept fighting, or he only fought once, it changed up the line. So now the lines got out of sorts, and nobody was able to really get into a groove. So eventually, they finally do get back into a groove, and with 11:52 left to go in the first period, Kirill Kaprizov gets on the board for his 33rd of the season, assisted by Ryan Hartman, his 22nd of the season. Basically, Kaprizov outworks the guy on the boards, managing to get the puck down to Hartman. Hartman then dishes it back to Kaprizov, and he goes top shelf. So it's 1-1 already. And that was actually the first shot of the game for Minnesota to hit the net, and it goes in. So I won't say Demko played badly, but that's not really the best one to give up, at least the first one in the game. Not really good. At 9:12, this game ended up being pretty back and forth. I'm just reading off my notes here, but at 9:12, the game was very scrappy. I continue to say that word because that's the perfect way to describe this. I keep thinking Connor Garland in my head, even though he didn't really show up that much in this game, but it's like his persona spread throughout the entire team. Everybody was fighting for loose pucks, trying to get into stuff, especially the Canucks. The Canucks were fighting like a team that wants to get into the playoffs. So they were fighting, going nuts, doing as much as they could. And I also learned at that point, Minnesota also has 4 guys in the top 10 in major penalties. That's penalties of 5 minutes or more. We had 4 guys in the top 10. And the reason Vancouver was staying in this game and Minnesota wasn't able to get any momentum, Vancouver was blocking shots and blocking a lot of them. A lot of shots from the point for Minnesota ended up getting blocked in the slot, or they'd ricochet over the boards, and nothing would work. So that's how Vancouver was still managing to keep in this game. And I also learned at that time that Minnesota has 4 left-handed defensemen in that game, and they only had 2 right-handed defensemen. So one defenseman had to play on his offhand. In this case, it was Goligoski playing that last night. Not last night, a little while ago. But it wasn't just blocked shots that was allowing Vancouver to be effective in this game. It was their face-offs, okay? Minnesota was only 3 for 12 on face-offs in the first period. They were needing to be better, obviously. But those face-offs lead to chances and they lead to scoring opportunities. And that's why Vancouver was still in this game, very much in this game. Basically, a lot of close chances back and forth. Eventually, more chances for Minnesota, some more for Vancouver, and the period finally ends. Shots ended up being 10-8 in favor of Vancouver, but in reality, it was a pretty close game anyway. So it wasn't like it was completely dominated by one side. Like I said, very scrappy period. Vancouver got off it pretty quickly, rolled into it, and then Minnesota came back. And I wrote down here, face-offs and block shots will decide this game, probably. I was half right about that. They were also showing a segment on Clint Malarchuk, who basically was fighting for mental health, and during the break they were doing some sort of mental health talks. Had a very nice cowboy hat, I will say that. He had a really good cowboy hat. But you should go check out his foundation. I'm not sure what it is, but it probably is good to check it out. Maybe even donate a little bit. Anyway, into the second period. The period ended up starting 4-on-4 because I want to say it was a fighting penalty, but I'm not quite sure. Here we go. With 33 seconds left in the first, Greenway and OEL end up both getting roughing penalties. So it's a 4-on-4. And that kept happening throughout this game. It kept being a 4-on-4 scenario. It was either this game or the Columbus game. That kept happening, and Minnesota would never really get into, their 5-on-5 specialty that they usually have. Luckily, that didn't really matter here because at 18:16 left to go in the second period, Kevin Fiala gets his 21st of the season. Basically, the shot came right off the face-off. Fiala spins in the slot and scores, and he had 12 points in his last 11 games when he scored that. So he was rolling. Another player that hasn't gotten on the score sheet very often, but is still making an impact, Matthew Boldy. He's generating chances. He's causing the defenseman to sneak down and realize, we got to pick up Matt Boldy now. Then he dishes it off to somebody else. I'd like Boldy to get back on the score sheet, just to know that, he's still contributing, because he's been a little quiet, but, we're still winning. We can definitely use his help, though. Use any help that we can get. And of course, Nicolas Deslauriers. If Middleton wasn't a good pickup, if Fleury for some reason wasn't a good pickup, if Jost wasn't a good pickup, this was an incredible pickup by Minnesota. He was going out here ramming people into the boards, getting the crowd hyped into it, getting people on their feet. And because of that, it spread throughout the entire team. Normally, guys, you wouldn't see hitting other people. You'd see Jost, you'd see Fiala, you'd see Kaprizov start throwing the body. Boldy would have a few hits. Gaudreau. All because of Nick Deslauriers making a bunch of huge hits down low. And Minnesota ended up buzzing for a little bit. They kept rolling through this. And Evason kept trying to get the matchup where it was Minnesota's fourth line, which was Duhaime, Deslauriers, and Jost, basically just to get Deslauriers to piss off JT Miller's line, which I think was Miller, Besser, Pettersson? Not sure. Middleton ended up leveling a guy. There was a delayed penalty goal by Merrill, which eventually was challenged for offsides. Vancouver ended up winning that challenge, but because it was delayed penalty, Richardson had a slashing penalty, and Minnesota still went to the power play. And Minnesota kept trying to get some more offensive opportunities. Zuccarello kept getting more hits, and nothing seemed to come of that power play, but Minnesota was definitely laying the body more and making it tough for Vancouver to try and get anything going. Then, at 3:36, I have Zook slashing penalty weak call. I don't know if it was a weak call. If I look back on it, it probably wasn't. I'm going to bet. But luckily, nothing came of that. Talbot is basically standing on his head. Nick Foligno had a lot of good plays on the penalty kill here. A lot of sticks in the lane of passes, and he just dominated. And the Wild had a very, very dominant second period. They basically controlled most of it. Vancouver did get some chances the other way, but it wasn't like Vancouver was much of a threat that period. Shots ended up being 20-21 in favor of Minnesota in that period. So it was still close. But just Minnesota seemed like they owned it with that physicality and all of the stuff that ended up happening. So that brings us now to the third period, which starts off with Greenway and Schenn pushing and shoving. What a shocker. Yeah, Luke Schenn was basically not really the bully for the Vancouver Canucks, but it was that scrappy feeling that, it's the same thing with Garland. Besser had a couple scrappy plays. Quinn Hughes had a few scrappy plays. And he also had a few plays that I was not really a fan of whatsoever. Specifically at 12:10, Zuccarello gets called for high sticking on Quinn Hughes. Hartman ends up going after Hughes and Demko and trying to get a puck in the zone. But when you see what happened on that slashing penalty, in reality, the stick of Zuccarello hits Quinn Hughes in the visor, doesn't touch his face whatsoever. In fact, it just hits it, falls down, and Quinn Hughes, oh my God! Oh, it's a great acting performance. Trust me, you got to see him in Hollywood. He is incredible in this new movie called I Flopped and Got Away with It and scored for my team. Well, he didn't score. But right off the bat, JT Miller ended up getting a power play goal at 12:04, his 27th of the season. I didn't write down the assist went to Hughes and Pettersson. Shocker. Who could have expected that? And the crowd was just pissed. You could hear the boos rain down for at least a few minutes. It was a bad call. It was an awful call. He definitely sold that to get away. And I mean, that's what NHL players do. Okay? It's what they do. So at the same time, I don't blame Hughes because he's trying to get the call there. But the refs also, you gotta see what's better. But of course, dipping the head back, a little bit of acting, and he gets his team tied. So it becomes a 2-2 game after that. Then tempers just start to get crazy. There's more hitting, more shoving. It's a playoff style hockey game. And it's very rough, very intense. Everybody's trying to go for as much as they can. Specifically at 3:13, it got to the point where one person would have the puck and they would be falling on the ice just trying to scrape at it, and it'd be like rabid dogs going after the puck. And this was both teams. Both teams would just rampage for the puck trying to get it. Minnesota had it for a while in Vancouver's defensive end and just peppered the shit out of Demko. Just one after the other, after the other, after the other. They just kept rolling. But eventually, game had to be settled in overtime. And Eriksson Ek gets the game winner, his 19th of the season at 4:29 in overtime, assisted by Kaprizov, his 25th of the season, and Brodin, his 20th of the season. And this overtime started out with the Canucks not only winning the faceoff, but JT Miller getting a great shot on net that hits the post. Shot hits the post. It's able to spring Eriksson Ek up the boards. Basically, Brodin finds Kaprizov, who gets it to Ek. Ek has a breakaway. Dekes Demko, goes backhand, and huge win. A win that the Wild desperately needed. And it was a very tough playoff-style game. One that usually you need a pretty long break for. After a big game like that, where it's 3-2 overtime, a very scrappy game. So they do get a 2-day break here. And then they end up... Oh, also, this game brought us back to second in the Central. It was a weird period midway through that night where I kept refreshing the NHL standings, and it would still show St. Louis in second, even though it never registered our game actually being played yet. And then I went to Google, and Google, of all places, had the standings right. So I was just pissed off, and I'm like, I'm just going to move it up the board anyway. So, with that being said, we move on to the Columbus game. A game where I wasn't able to see the majority of this one because I was busy doing other college stuff. Because, again, I'm in college and I have to figure out what I'm doing. It's the Avs one. We'll talk about that one in a little bit because that game was nuts. All three of these games were nuts, and I don't think anybody expected them to be as nuts as they did. All right, so now, Blue Jackets versus the Wild. This game happened yesterday. This was Marc-Andre Fleury's highly coveted debut. It was Elvis Merzlikins and Marc-Andre Fleury. And right from the bat, you could tell both goalies were standing on their heads. Elvis Merzlikins really stood on his head in this game. He was stopping everything to start for Minnesota. Until he wasn't. Because it looks like... I wasn't able to get the time for this game yet because I wasn't able to see the goal. But at some point, there's a power play goal for Kaprizov to get his 34th of the season, assisted by Zuccarello and Eriksson Ek. Basically, Zuccarello found Kaprizov on the back door for a pretty easy goal. And this game was also nationally televised on ESPN. Well, not nationally televised, but it was an ESPN Plus Hockey Night game. And for a second, I thought we were going to get Leah Hextall. She's now a sideline reporter, which is good. Because then we get, what's his name? Whoever was calling the Columbus, Minnesota game, that is a voice I want to hear for the playoffs. If ESPN is hosting playoff series, put that guy in charge of Minnesota series. It is going to be, or any playoff series, it's going to be fun to watch. Because he had fun calling this game. So that first play, Zuccarello is basically behind the net. He throws it to Kaprizov. Merzlikins doesn't really notice that Zook has the puck. He throws it to Kaprizov. Kaprizov bangs it in pretty easily 1-1 or 1-0. But then Jake Bean gets a goal back for Columbus. And this was in the second period because again, I had just gotten back. I had just seen this goal. This goal was a funny one to give up for Marc-Andre Fleury. Basically, it was a scramble in front of the net. There was a pile of bodies there. And the puck ends up kicking off the back of Fleury's skate, hits the post, and rolls in. So a very fluky play, but one that goes in, and it's unfortunate how that happens. But nobody was blaming Fleury for that. It's the way the puck bounces. It's just what happened. And of course, Columbus doesn't forgive and forget what happened to Jakub Voracek when we went to Columbus and played them. And they just played almost kind of dirty, but almost kind of not. Because again, Columbus is pissed about what happened. I'm pretty sure that was unintentional, but that's the way it goes. And I wrote here, 10:44 in the second period, another even scrappier game with lots of bad blood. Peak and Hartman get roughing penalties, which makes it a 4-on-4. Middleton ends up leveling someone at 10:20. Tyson Jost nearly got his first goal in this game with a great play right in front of the net, but Mertz Lincoln's still standing on his head, just manages to stop all the plays. And that first Minnesota goal came after an incredible penalty kill by them, where it was a lot like Marcus Foligno was in the game against Vancouver. He was sticks in the lanes, nothing for Columbus to get it separated, and he was rolling. At some point, the ESPN crew put a headset on Darby Hendrickson, basically talking about, hey, do you mind the amount of intensity and like the bad blood in this game, or do you think this should be dialed down? And Darby, saying the right thing, basically said, yeah, I think it should be dialed down. Oh, someone fell over there. I think it should be dialed down, basically, because we don't want to be putting ourselves in a bad position and shooting ourselves in the foot, which is kind of what Minnesota did here. But it was funny because immediately after that, they asked, does Everson owe you something for him not taking the call and you having to put the headset on? And he's like, yeah, he owes me a beer, at least. Something more. So good on Darby for that. And at some point, oh yeah, because of the nastiness in this game, at 7:59, Oliver Bjorkstrand basically hits Marcus Foligno from behind. That one ends up getting called. But what also gets called is Greenway sticking up for Foligno and basically roughing Oliver Bjorkstrand. Because it's good to stick up for your team, but also not. So yeah, this was the game that had a lot of 4-on-4. A lot of moments where it wasn't the 5-on-5 where Minnesota is dominant in. It's odd man chances and weird line combos that just don't really work our favor. So nothing ends up happening. Eventually, Zach Werenski had to leave the game at 4:29 because Zach Werenski actually got hit by Jacob Middleton in a play that some fans were somewhat calling, a bad hit or like a cheap hit. It wasn't. It was basically two guys standing up straight in front. Middleton comes in and gets him right in the chest. It looks like it's hitting his face, and his glove might have come up to get his face on accident, but it's not a dirty hit. It's a clean, open ice hit that just happened to hit him in the face. I'm hoping Werenski's okay. I think he was good to go after this game. I think he was fine. So didn't go to the hospital, didn't have any sort of injury, so he's good. And then again, more 4-on-4 in this game. 53 for Columbus, which I'm not sure who that is. I just wrote down the numbers because play was going too fast. So 53 for Columbus, and then Kaprizov gets into the box because those two were slashing each other back and forth. Not good to have Kaprizov in the box. What does it lead to? A 4-on-4 goal for Jacob Voracek, therefore making it 2-1 with 1:05 to go in the second period. And all of a sudden, it seems like the momentum is slowly going towards Columbus. And this goal was basically a play off of the faceoff, given to Voracek in the slot, and Voracek just fires it home. It's similar to the Bo Horvat goal. It's similar to a lot of goals that Talbot's given up because for some reason, wild defensemen can't get guys in the slot. I don't know why, but that just seems to be the kryptonite that Talbot's facing. And it's a shot in the slot. You'd expect at least a little bit of help, and sometimes Talbot gets screened by Dumba or Kulikov or somebody in front. So that could also be it. But this one goes in, and right at the end of the second period, Marc-Andre Fleury does what he does. He makes a flurry of multiple saves on a very close chance for Voracek again. Literally 1, 2, 3. He's falling down. He's got the pucks firing at him on all places. Finally covers it up, and it's the end of the second. To a roaring ovation inside of the X because they're like, geez, that is what we got him for. Big saves like that is what we need. And then the Wild came out in the third period as a team that was pissed off. Whatever Evason said in the third period to get these guys hyped up just tore off. Just completely flew out of the gates flying. Eriksson Ek ended up leveling Kuraly, who was slow to get up at 17-16. At 12:54, Minnesota was buzzing so much that the shots were 9-1 in the third period in favor of Minnesota. They were absolutely hammering the Blue Jackets. And they had been doing basically everything in their power to get a goal, but nothing would go in. One, because Merzlikins played godly in this game. He was on fire. And two, because the puck just wouldn't bounce in. There'd be some chances where Merzlikins didn't really do much. He was often out of position and got saved by either a random stick or just a puck bouncing away. So Minnesota had everything going into this game. The crowd ended up getting into it, going nuts. At some point, Goligoski got a high sticking penalty, but Minnesota, great penalty kill, able to kill it off again. The crowd starts to get into it at 5:23 left in the third period. At 3:47, Jared Spurgeon goes behind the net. He gets clearly held by Gustav Nyquist, and the call gets missed, so fans were definitely booing that. And then at 2:25, the play that Evason loves to do, pull the goalie. At 2:25 left, Minnesota ended up calling a timeout with 1:11 left. They still had the puck, and they had it in the offensive zone. What happens? 1:03 left to go. 6-on-5 goal, Kirill Kaprizov, his 35th of the season, assisted by Brodin. Basically, it was a great face-off win by Eriksson Ek, able to get it to Kaprizov along the boards. Eriksson Ek goes to the front of the net. He screens Merzlikins in front, causes Merzlikins to shift over one way, and Kaprizov just sneaks it in short side. And the building loses it. The call is incredible. Everybody is losing their minds because this play just managed to happen. And now we eventually head into overtime where there's no quit in this Wild team, and they continue to put on the pressure. Shots were 36-24 at the end of regulation. And at 4:14, or at least, 4:14 of overtime, Flower had to make a big save. And he did. He makes a huge save to keep the game going for Minnesota. Then, eventually, Fiala ends up having a give-and-go play to Spurgeon. Basically, Spurgeon enters the zone, weaves into... let me rephrase this. Because I gotta remember. Spurgeon comes across the zone, dumps it off for Fiala. Fiala drags both Columbus defenders with him. He sneaks the puck back to Spurgeon, who's open in the slot. Forehand, backhand, hits the post, bounces off of Merzlikins into the net. People lose their minds. And Flower gets his first win in a Wild jersey. Jacob Middleton gets his first win in a Wild jersey. And the whole building is hyped because another OT winner, just like how this team had won in the beginning of the season. It's the same thing that is happening again. They are winning clutch, incredible games in overtime on home ice. It is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And it was even better in this game because 3 stars ended up being Marc-Andre Fleury, Kirill Kaprizov, and Jared Spurgeon. Kaprizov with 2 goals in this game. Spurgeon with the OT winner, and Flower because it's Flower. It's his first game, and there were flowers thrown onto the ice for him, and they danced in the locker room for him after he won. It was the greatest thing to see. It's euphoric. It feels good when Marc-Andre Fleury feels good. It's like that most radiant smile that you can possibly get ever. It is. We must protect Marc-Andre Fleury at all costs, okay? In Chicago, they didn't mean to have a shitty team in front of him. Chicago fans still loved him, but it just wasn't working out. We got to make it work out, and it looks like it's working out here, which is so good. Oh, it's so good. And ESPN, of course, pumping up the XL Energy Center, basically kind of gaslighting me in a way. Because they kept saying, that's a loud building. It's a loud building when this team's playing good, and it's not the old boring style of hockey that was the Jacques Lemaire trap defense, low scoring, no skill games. We have skill. We have talent. We have a legit chance to win the Stanley Cup. I don't know how many people don't understand that. We have a shot to win. We have a shot to win. And if you didn't think we had a shot to win, there's one more game I gotta show you that just happened and just finished today. This is another game where when I woke up, I didn't realize this game was being played. I thought it was played on Monday. Turns out it's played today. Whoops. But the Avs coming to town, the best team in the league, against the Minnesota Wild. This game was a classic Central Division game. Just like the other two games, very scrappy, very rough, very high temperatured. But it's the Central Division. The toughest division in all of hockey. I'm just going to say it. It is the toughest division in all of hockey. Just take a look at the rest of this. Look at all the teams that are in the Central. You have the best team in the league right here. Oh, Jesus, I'm losing notes here. Hold on. Let's take a look at this. You have the Avs right here. Best team in the league. Only 3 points ahead of Florida, but everybody kind of knows they're the best team in the league. You have us. Scrappy, dirty, hungry underdog team who has never had a good team like this in their existence. You have the Blues, kind of falling apart a little bit, kind of slowing down, but they are still rolling. They are a Central Division opponent that can still put up goals, and they still have talent along the lineup. Then you have Nashville. These three teams are honestly basically the exact same, or these three right here. They're essentially the exact same type of teams. Young, hungry, scrappy type of teams that could do damage to any of these other teams in playoff positions. That is how terrifying the Central Division is. That's why I think it's the toughest division in all of hockey, because whoever comes out of there is coming out of the West. I don't think Calgary can beat any team that's coming out of that Central Division. I know Calgary is rolling, and they will probably make it to the Western Conference Finals, because I don't see Edmonton, the Kings, or I guess the Stars now, because I really don't see 4 Pacific Division teams. Vegas can kind of sneak in there, but that's the only hope they have. Maybe Vancouver, like I said, but they're hoping for a miracle right now. But again, it's the Central Division opponents. These opponents are tough for a reason. It's playoff style hockey in the middle of the season. Well, I guess the last 20 games of the season. So, we were expecting a good one today, and we pretty much got a good one. It was Kemper versus Talbot in net. And I'm glad they gave the net to Talbot here, because Fleury played last night, and 2, because Talbot kind of deserves this opportunity. He's been he's standing on his head the whole time. He has been incredible for Minnesota, and he kind of deserves this. So, game ends up starting off. Well, I didn't catch the start of this game. I forgot to mention that. Or I might have mentioned that. This is what I get for trying to record 3 videos all at once. This is what I get. This is the extended cut. I'm not sure what I'm going to title this video, but we'll figure it out. Now, this is the extended cut of everything. So when I tuned into the game, apparently there was a good Minnesota penalty kill. There was a Sturm and Kemper reunion, obviously, because they're back. And Jost, who's playing his former team, that makes sense. At 1:44, I get something where Makar shoves Hartman's head. Oh, yeah, I remember this. So basically, Makar and Hartman get tangled up along the boards. They end up falling down. Makar's on top of Hartman. His stick is stuck underneath him. Hartman's unable to get up because, Makar's on top of him. And Makar just says, you know what? Let me just slam your head into the ice a couple more times. And luckily, he gets called for it. And Makar's like, well, what the hell? His stick was underneath him. Yeah, but you're supposed to get off of him. That's how you get your stick back. Apparently, he didn't know that. So, Wild ended up going on the power play, but it's a power play that felt like it was in the beginning of the year. They weren't able to enter the zone cleanly, and the Avs were just holding up 4 guys on the blue line. It was just nothing coming from that one. At 14 seconds, I got the refs missing a tripping call, and apparently the refs were bad for both sides, supposedly. Avs fans really, really wanted to blame the refs for this one. I don't think so, because, if your team's that good, you shouldn't require the refs to win you the game. You shouldn't. Okay? If your team is good enough, they are able to overcome awful challenges by the refs. And I understand, it changes momentum. It gets people's thoughts in a different head. If your team is good enough, you should win. Simple as that. They're not going to be like Tim Donaghy, completely, scandal for everything. They're not going to, blow games on purpose. And if they are, then we'll call them out. But they're not doing that for this game, okay? It's just the way they called the game. This wasn't completely biased towards one side or the other. It was shitty both ways. So you got to live with it. And you're the best team in the league, too. You should be good at this. You should be kicking the shit out of teams like us, like St. Louis, like Nashville. You should be rolling, but you're falling apart right now because you might have peaked too early. So this is your chance to get that retribution out, or get those valleys into a season where you're not winning all 82. I hate to break it to you. Nobody's ever going to win all 82. You could say the Golden State Warriors, they almost did it, 73-9, right? Or 70. That is 82, right? 73-9. Yeah, 73-9. Golden State Warriors tried it. They ended up losing in the finals, so it was worth nothing. So there's no point in trying to win all 82. That's why you have peaks and valleys in the season. That's why during the Wild's slump that they had, I wasn't honestly too worried. It may have looked like it, obviously, but after we started to win some more, I realized, wait, we kind of needed that. We needed a wake-up call. We had just been kind of coasting by midway through the season, and we never really seen like that dominant team that we looked like in the beginning of the season. Then we start to lose a couple games, and people start to think, oh, Lord, we could just be a wild card team. Look at us now. We are 5 points ahead of St. Louis. We are second in the Central. We have won almost every game on this homestand, except for the one we probably should have won, Mikko Koivu's retirement night. How do we not win that? It is the retirement of the best player that has ever played in a Wild jersey, and we blow it 6-2, 5-2? I don't even remember. I don't know how the hell we lost that one, because we're probably going to play, we're playing either Nashville or St. Louis in the playoffs. That's a given. So it's one of those two teams that we are going to play in the playoffs, and it's going to be a tough series. It's not going to be easy. And then right after that, we're probably playing the Avs. Because right after either, if we win against St. Louis and Nashville, or one of those two, then we'll play this team right here. Anyway, I am getting off topic. But at the end of the first period, I basically wrote down, this team isn't Goliath, okay? The Avs are human. They've lost a couple games. They lost to Vancouver the night before we played them. So I figured they're a human team. I was talking to my buddies. He's like, bro, I just need to get some wins under my belt. They're falling apart. I've been to 5 Avs games. My girlfriend's been to 3 of them. I keep blaming her for all the times they keep losing. Which could work. I mean, you never know. Maybe it is her fault. Shots at the end of the first, Colorado was up 14-8 on Minnesota. Then we go into the second period, where again, it seemed like both goaltenders were kind of doing pretty good. But this is where Talbot just kind of took off. Minnesota was doing a good job of letting Talbot actually see these shots, because oftentimes our defensemen will be the ones to, get him screened in front. This game was different, because they were able to get those bodies out of the front of the net, and all these shots Talbot was able to see and have a good chance to stop them. And I wrote down here, the road to the cup goes through Denver. Yeah, it does. The road to the cup will go through Denver, because if they lose in the first round, that city is going to light on fire, because the Avs fans are fed up at this point. Believe me, I've lived with Avs fans for 15 years. They will be fed up if nothing comes of this. If nothing comes of this highly dominant team, then they'll be pissed. Now, we also have to give a little credit where some credit is due. They don't have Landeskog. They still have a couple guys that are injured. I get that. But at some point, you got to start winning some games and getting some momentum before you roll into the playoffs. You're not going to fall out of the playoff picture. Nobody's expecting you to. Avs Insider posted a comment saying the Wild are now only 14 points behind the Avs for first in the Central. We're not winning the Central. We're fine with that. We're fine with having you kick the shit out of some wild card team in the first round, and then we'll meet you in the second round where we can embarrass you again like we did in 2014 or 2003. Or you can make it be like 2008 where you don't go anywhere. So that's up to you as fans. You just got to get through the first round, and we'll get through there too. But Talbot is having a good time seeing these shots and is able to get some stops. Okay? Tyson Jost nearly had a goal at 12:35. An incredible defensive play by Matt Dumba on a 2-on-1 at 11:16. Basically, a 2-on-1 comes back the other way. Dumba was able to get his stick laying down and just stops Burakovsky on a great chance. And at 8:56, I wrote down the Avs are the ones that are controlling play, but Talbot is the one that's standing on his head because shots at this point were 28-9 in favor of Colorado. Talbot was rolling. The game is still 0-0 at this point. It is 28-9 in favor of Colorado as far as shots go. 7:18, Kulikov levels Burakovsky for a good hit. 6:14, multiple close chances for Kaprizov and Zuccarello getting in. And finally, as Wes Walls was saying on the broadcast, the Wild have weathered the storm. The daylight is peeking out. And by daylight, they mean offensive chances. Chances to put one in the back of the net. And eventually, they do. At 5:46, there's energy starting to get back into the building. At 3:30, there's a Comfer holding penalty. And then on the power play, his 36th of the season, it seems like he gets one every game at this point, Kirill Kaprizov on the power play goal, assisted by Ryan Hartman. Basically, Hartman controls the puck behind the net, dishes it off to Kaprizov, who is short side wide open, gets an easy goal, and then gets pushed by Devin Taves right after that goal goes in. A little bit of a scrum ensues, goal's still in, it's fine. Either Devin Taves was pissed off or he was hoping to, try and stop Kaprizov, even though he clearly saw the puck in the net and then pushed him. But that's, so be it. So be it. 1-1. Or no, 1-0 at this point. And before that shot went in, the Colorado penalty kill was 22 for 22. That broke a big streak for them. They were 22 and 22 on the penalty kill, and then we get a power play goal like that. And so the end of the second, shots are 28-14. The Wild are leading 1-0 against the best team in the NHL. And in the third period, it really doesn't start out good for Minnesota because Greenway makes a tripping penalty. But Talbot is still standing on his head. He's still rolling at 18:05. At 17:07, Greenway comes out of the box, gets a breakaway opportunity like he had earlier in this game. He is stopped by Darcy Kemper. At 16:19, another very close chance for Jared Spurgeon right in front of the net. The energy is starting to come back into this building once again. I also got to point out something earlier because Eriksson Ek ended up breaking the boards on a hit by Alex Newhook. Neither player went into the crowd. Neither player was injured. Well, Ek was for a little bit, but he was fine. He just decides to break the boards or sometime early in the first period because that was really the only eventful thing that happened in that first period. That and Greenway's first breakaway. At 15-16, it seemed like both teams were kind of going all out. It was like the Columbus and Vancouver games near the end. Scrappy, hungry play where they're just clawing at every puck, trying their best to get in. At 14-16, Matt Dumba lays a massive hit on Mikko Rantanen. Basically, it's a clean hit, levels him, he's down to the ice, and Nathan MacKinnon, sticking up for his teammate like the good guy he is, goes in to fight Matt Dumba, which I was just confused by because, one, Dumba doesn't fight, MacKinnon doesn't usually fight, so it was a weird, odd fight. MacKinnon won it, but in reality, Wild fans didn't give a shit about that fight. Or at least, Wild fans shouldn't have given a shit about that fight because it didn't really mean much as far as us losing. That hit was all we needed and a fight to get the energy back into the building. During the break in which there was Jared Spurgeon and Jacob Middleton both go up to Dumba in the box, just basically saying, yeah, thanks for sticking up for him. And Dumba's just laughing his ass off. He's like, I don't even know why the hell he wanted to fight me, but okay. Oh, man. So they end up helping him out, and MacKinnon is stuck in the box, which should be a good thing, but apparently it's not, because Nazem Kadri gets one right off of the face-off at 13:39, his 26th of the season, assisted by Comfer and Taves. Again, a play right off the face-off, like right off the draw. Wins it back to Taves, gets it over to Comfer, who dishes it off to Kadri. He fires a shot, and it goes in. So it's a 1-1 game then, At 12:47, Eric Johnson, former Gopher, gotta love him, he ends up taking an interference penalty. At 12:11, though, there was a massive shorthanded opportunity for Colorado, a breakaway for Colorado for Kevin O'Connor. And Talbot makes a massive save. Basically, that breakaway started because Hartman ended up losing an edge on the blue line. It was a 2-on-0, but in reality only one guy shot, and Talbot makes the save again. So thank God. Eventually, at 8... Oh, no. I got to get over to this, too. So at 10:33, the power play doesn't really get much from Minnesota. Obviously, the shorthanded opportunity. Couple close chances, but nothing able to go in. Then at 10 minutes, Middleton takes a cross-checking penalty, which, yeah, it's a good call. And then literally 3 seconds later, Mikko Rantanen gets his 33rd goal of the season on the power play, assisted by Kadri, his 55th assist of the season. Basically, this faceoff squirts right into the slot where Rantanen has an open shot, and just like Voracek against Columbus and just like Horvat against Vancouver, it's a shot in the slot where nobody's able to help Cam Talbot, and it's 2-1 Colorado. So then at 8:38, Dumba and McKinnon both eventually get out of the box. 8:02, there's a close chance for the Grief line. Nothing really happens for a lot of time until at 5:26, Ryan Hartman gets his 27th of the season on an assist from Zuccarello. Basically, Zuccarello had some great puck play along the boards, is able to sneak out into the slot, originally fires a pass for Hartman. It gets deflected back to him. He's stumbling, still able to get it back to Hartman. Hartman just fires this one top shelf on the back door, and it's a 2-2 game. Avs fans, for some reason, wanted a random call for Compher's glove getting knocked into the net, with 6 minutes to go. Doesn't really make any sense to me. I'm not sure why that'd be a slashing call, but okay. And so now it's a 2-2 game. And this is also the moment where I realized that Sturm took number 78 for the Avs because 7 was taken by Devontae's. So he's now 78. It's going to be weird to get to. At 1:05, there was a great save by Cam Talbot, which ends up leading to another scrum in front of the net because this game needed more anger and frustration from both sides, obviously. Then, at 25.2 seconds left in the game, Eric Johnson slams Tyson Jost head first into the boards. EJ gets a cross-checking penalty. Obviously, there's a scrum around him. Jost would be fine. But Avs fans, I looked in the comments after the Avs Insider. A few of you said, how is that a penalty on Eric Johnson? How is that not a penalty on Eric Johnson? If you slam somebody head first into the boards, how do you not get called for that? How in the world, oh my goodness, if a car door got slammed on you that fast, that hard at NHL level, you would not be able to get up. You'd probably be down on the ground for a little bit with a broken nose. It's lucky that Tyson Jost didn't get one. It is head first into the boards. And it's a guy that you used to have. It's Tyson Jost. You love Tyson Jost. Why the hell? Oh my God, some fans in every fan base are dumb. Some fans in every fan base are dumb. And the ones in the Avs fan base just... Oh man. How? It wasn't Avs Insider, it was just some of the comments on that page. It was just... Oh my God. Regardless, the Wild end up getting a power play that they hold on with the rest of regulation to and then go into overtime with. Right at the end of the game, right at the end of regulation, Kaprizov ends up hitting the post. Deflection in front, hits the crossbar and goes out. So we have overtime again. The third night in a row. The third night it is 2-2 heading into overtime. And the third night again where Minnesota wins it in overtime. Who's the hero tonight? In the 4-on-3, 15 seconds into overtime, Kevin Fiala gets the goal, his 22nd of the season. That's fitting for him. What a win. What a number. And then Zuccarello gets his 48th assist of the season. Eriksson Ek gets his 16th of the season. Incredible passing leading into the zone after the Wild win the opening draw. It's a great pass, dump pass from Eriksson Ek to Zuccarello over to Fiala on the back door. 1T, it's in. And we're losing our goddamn minds. We're losing our minds because we've won 3 overtime games in a row, 3-2. This recent one against the best team in the league. Oh my God. And we get a good break. We get a little bit of a break. This was the second game of a back-to-back. This was the second game of a back-to-back against the toughest team in the league, and we won both games. That is clutch. That is incredible. Like, oh my God, this team just feels so damn good. And it feels like it was earlier in the season. Not like we were holding on for dear life, but like it was clutch wins that we needed. And we didn't have to pull the goalie here to get back into the game. Okay, it was 2-2 for a long period of time. We'll only pull the goalie when we have to. When we did it against Columbus, because we had to. It worked. But as long as we're not completely playing like that, we're arguably one of the best teams in the league. We can stick up there with anybody. With Florida, with obviously the best team in the league, with Colorado. Carolina, we have Pittsburgh coming here. That's another big test. But that's another home game we have. Not before, the Flyers come back this way. It's an easier opponent. Please don't play down to your competition. That is your chance to run up the score on Philly. Just have their season end a little earlier. It'd be so much better for the rest of us. Anyway, this video is a long one. This video is incredibly long. So, I'm going to end it right there. I appreciate you for sticking through this if you have. If you managed to stuck through all 51 minutes of this, I am impressed by you. Okay? God bless you. But go outside, find something to do. Just please. I will not get stuck into this trap where I have to post 3 games in one day. I will be much more up to date tomorrow, or not tomorrow. The day after tomorrow will be a much shorter video. I swear. It'll be a much shorter video. It'll be much easier to comprehend. But as always, if you did watch it, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. I will keep track on the Wild. I know it was hard to look at earlier, but I will keep track on the Wild. And I will make sure to keep up to date with this team. And as always, I'll see you later.